Hi, welcome to Tiny Garage Fabrication. Today I'm going to build an exhaust basically from scratch. I've got a few sticks of tubing, I've got a few mandrel bends, I've got some tools, I've got a saw, a welder, a tape measure, an angle finder, and with all that, we're going to build a really cool exhaust for my 1972 C10 Shop Truck. This exhaust may seem a little bit complex. I want a 2-in-1, and I want it to tuck all the way up inside the frame because I may airbag this truck later down the road, and I don't want to have to rebuild the exhaust in order to make clearance so that it won't hit the ground or scrape or something like that if I get this thing as low as it could go. I built this whole thing in a fashion that really anybody could build in a small garage or even out in their driveway, which basically I did here. With the exception of a little bit of fanciness I did on the exhaust hangers, but there's many, many different types of hangers out there. Just select what works best for you. There's even some stuff that's basically what I kind of designed mine off of. Well, with the intro out of the way, let's get to work. Let's build an exhaust. So here's the general layout of what I'm going for. So coming off the headers, I'm going to go into these two 8-inch flex pipes. From the passenger side, I'm going to do a 90. It's going to pass under the transmission. Going to need to make some cuts out of that U-bend to get it to kind of go up and then back to go into the left side of this collector. Over here, I've got to make a few bends or miter cuts or something to kind of wiggle it in and out to meet up with the other side of the collector. From the collector, it's going to go out. It kind of has to go up and over to the inlet of the muffler, which will be bolted under the bed. And that's 2 2.5-inch in to 1 3-inch out. So I'm going to be using this bend to accommodate that and maybe some left over to go from the outside here. It's going to go from the outlet out. It has to kind of curve and then go out to this right here. And right now this is just a 90-degree stainless bend. And this is going to be my tip. I'm going to do something kind of fun with it. And I've got extra pipe here and extra pipe over here. Should cover everything I need to do. And the first thing I need to do is get the 2.5-inch 90-degree mandrel bend. I'm cutting 7 inches off of it so that when I slide this on, it'll go a 1/2 inch more. It'll leave me a 1/2 inch sticking out, and then I will need to figure out the angle to get up to the header collector. And in the little bit between here and the collector, I'll add the O2 sensor bung. Let's get this cut. There we go. We'll have to weld these together. And now hopefully this piece ought to be enough. We can do some miter cuts to get a little bend into it. Here I'm getting everything just kind of mocked up in place and using an angle finder to figure out what angle I need to cut my next thing to. And then after that, I'm going to use a tape measure to figure out how long that angled piece needs to be. And then we'll go to the saw and cut everything up. Okay, so I decided that that angle was about 20 degrees. So I've set my miter here at 10 degrees, which is half that because I'm going to do 2 cuts. And I measured that it was 6 inches between the collector and the flex pipe, but I need another 1/2 inch to go into the flex pipe. So I marked this down to 3 1/4 inches. So there it is at my 3 1/2 inch mark. I'm on the middle of that seam, and I'm going to lock it in place, and we'll get to going. This is how it was cut. And now technically if I rotate this 180 degrees, then it should line up and give me my 20-degree angle. There's my 20 degrees. And there we go. I'm going to place some tacks on this, and then we'll put it in the exhaust and see if... Oh, hold up. Still gotta chop an end off here. The cool thing is this is a ball, swivel ball socket, so it's got a little bit of give in it. I had it pointed originally just as far away from the fuel stuff as possible, and that's another reason why I'm going that way with the exhaust over to the driver's side, even though it's going to have a passenger side exit, because I just wanted to stay away from all of the fuel lines as much as possible. Well, it's not quite as tucked up as I want it. I want it just a little bit more, but I think I'm okay with that. Where it's at. Still gives me plenty of clearance for a exhaust mount on the back, and it kind of stays away from the transmission too much. Yeah, I think I'm gonna keep it right there. Make a mark here. There we go. Alright, let's go up and weld it. I got the little lines marked up, or lined up. And go ahead and throw some tacks on here. Now get this on. Make sure that you keep this in place. Otherwise, you'll never get it on. Time to give it one more little fit before we go fully weld it. Alright, sweet. I think it's everything just about where I needed it to be. It's got some clearance for the fuel line. I'll probably throw some header wrap right here, just because this is the soft line for the fuel. Yeah, let's go burn this sucker. And then I also have to add the O2 sensor bung in this pipe as well, either on the inside, probably be on the inside just to protect it and keep it away from here. Alright. On the flex pipe, there is the outer band, like the inner bands of the mesh, and then the pipe. You notice I'm welding all the way through up to this outer band. Make sure I capture all those, or else there might be leaks. Yeah, it's not super pretty, but it's super solid. That's what I need. For the next side, I need a 50-degree cut, so we're going to go ahead and set the miter to 25. Oh, there it is. Come on. Don't mess with me. There we go, 25. Lock it down. Cool. Okay, I got it set on 25. Got my marks made, clamped on. Let's hope it cuts straight. It doesn't. This bandsaw is absolute trash. The table's great. The bandsaw sucks. Perfect. 180-degree cut. 50-degree cut. Now I'm gonna go throw a tack on this and see how it turns out. So here's a bandsaw trick. Let's say you need to make a miter cut and you need to have a specific length on the long side. So for this one right here, I need a 3.5 inch long side. You can see I got that mark right there in line with 3.5 inches. So the question is, where do you start your cut? Well, what I do is I just simply take it to the back side and I align my mark with the back side of the blade, because that's where it's going to exit from, and then I clamp it in place, move it to the front, and I'll make my cut. Simple, right? Here's a little bit of proof that that hack works. You can see my line, you can see the blade, and we're right on. There we go, 3.5. So in this clip, I'm doing the exhaust tip, and I'm taking a 90-degree bend and cutting it kind of at the beginning of the bend so that the result is a teardrop shape, as you can see here. Oh, I know I didn't show the build of any of the driver's side pipe, but this is it. I got the driver's side collector here. I needed it to actually bend up just a little bit, so there's a 50-degree angle, goes into the flex, and then I needed it to jog up and over a cross member, so I got 10 degrees, then another 10-degree opposing to set it back in the same as this, and I needed to move it over 4 inches. So I got 45s here, and there's a 4-inch spacing between this center line and this center line, and then a 5-inch extension to get me to my merge collector. I know these miter cuts are stupid. I really would prefer to have done all mandrel bends, but this is the only 2.5 mandrel bend that I have left. I don't have the time or money to order more, so I went ahead and just did the miter cuts. And this entire one is going to be used in order to get the passenger side up and over the cross member and pointed towards the collector, and I'll show you that here in a second. I'll try to show you what I can here. We've got the header collector, and then it goes back through the bent pieces. And the little jog that I have, move over 4 inches to go into the merge pipe. Boy, this really is a job that a lift would be nice for. I'm on my back with about, 12 inches of clearance, but it is what I got. So there's the merge collector, and it goes through, there's that hole in the cross member right there, and that will be my 3-inch. Will go out that way, and then from the cross member back, it'll be all 3-inch. So now I have to get from, let's see if I can show it, I gotta get from here up and over to right about here, and that's where I'm going to use that other 90-degree piece that I have, or the 180-degree bend. Here's the passenger side. Now it comes down here, so this is going to sit about like that, mounted up, and now I need to go from here up this way, jog over the cross member, and ultimately end up right here at this collector piece. So that's going to be a fun one to make. Just a little kind of a 4-dimensional S-bend. So I'm going to get to that. Probably won't be a lot of filming of it because I'm going to be back and forth between under here and welding, but I'll show you the final product when it's done. So here's that 180 that I had, and I just simply cut it right in half and then turned this piece 90 degrees. So now I've got a little S-bend, and I did do a little bit of extra miter right in the middle, so that way it can, I don't know if you can see, but it does curve this way. It curves inward just a little bit because the miter, the center line radius was just a little bit too tall to fit in the space, so I wanted it to kind of, turn in a little bit. So for looking at the truck, there's the transmission mount, and it will fit onto that little extension, kind of wrap around the outside of that transmission, and then head back towards the merge pipe. All right, now here's one you guys may not be working in a fab shop, might be working in your driveway or whatever. This is, like I said, this is obviously an exhaust on kind of a poor man's budget. So I got a couple of plastic sawhorses, a piece of particle board, and I got my welder in the back of my 4Runner. But it doesn't really matter. We're still going to be able to get this thing done. Something I like to do when holding these, it's kind of hard. I like to take my ground clamp, since it's got to be on there anyway, and I'll clamp the piece to the table, and it kind of holds it for me. And then from there I can find the marks that I made, I can line my pieces up, and then I can get a good tack on it. And then from there, just kind of weld it one way or another. Good to go. Now with just 2 tacks in place, I'm going to check the fitment, and I'm going to come back and fully weld this thing. Well, the test fit was good. I'm going to have to do maybe some reshaping on here. It has a hard time slipping into the collector, but I'll take care of that after it's all welded. So I'm going to go ahead and throw down some beads. And that right there is made completely out of what was that 90-degree U-bend. It's got about 7 inches left of it, but that's what you can make if you have to. It's time for me to do the exhaust hangers. So last night I took some real crude measurements just so I knew kind of where the tabs would be, and then I went ahead and kind of made little sketches just so that I could translate that into CAD in Fusion 360 to draw up the actual parts. I'm using these as the exhaust hangers. These are high temperature silicone. Basically, bolt goes on this side, the piece that I'm cutting goes right here, and then you kind of sandwich it, and then up against the other piece of the frame or whatever, you run a bolt through here and it squishes all together, and it hangs on a nice little high temp silicone isolated thing, but it's bolted in place, so it's pretty solid. I heard these are the way to go. I haven't used them before, but they came highly recommended. So I've got one of my tabs all loaded up in here. Let's go ahead and cut it out. Let's see how this fits. Basically this will go into there. We put together, and then we bolt this thing on. Now this particular one right here should fit right there on the end of my collector. Just like that, and I'll weld it on here, and I'll be able to mount this right to the cross member. I'm going to cut out a few more. All the pieces for the front half. This is for the 2.5 with the exception of the collector. So I've got my left side and my right side here. But let me tell you, I really need to tune up my machine. This thing's pretty bad. Kind of hard to see, but those holes are not totally round. This one here really shows it. So my machine, I don't know, one of the axes is kind of hanging up, I think, so it's not able to do rounds really well. And also, this might be kind of hard to see, but the bevel here, this should be at 90 degrees, and it's not. And that affects on these holes too. So I had to go through and clean these up a little bit. It's really hard to drill through something that's been plasma cut because that heat treats it, and it'll just chew up your drill bits. So I use a junky old step bit that I have just to kind of just do a real quick chamfer on both sides, and you know, with that I'm able to just barely get my bolt through. And when I design these actually oversized, and with that bevel in there, it just even needs help just to get it in. But my bolt goes through everything, so we'll be able to get this thing put together. But yeah, having a machine's cool, but I just kind of have it in this spot, and it's not level, and I need to do some tuning to it. So it's nice to have, but it's even nicer when you you know, can take care of it and have it in a proper environment. But eventually I'll get to, you know, getting it in one spot, get it settled down, get my Z-axis and torch height control installed, and then it should actually be a pretty good cutter. Once again, we're back here welding without the fab table. Got a square-ish, got a tab. So how bad could it be? Now while I've got this off to weld the tab on, I'm going to get the O2 sensor bung installed. So this is the bung that came with the fuel injection kit, and screws on there. This has to go inside, which is 5/8 of an inch. So I marked this earlier with the grease pencil. I'm going to go ahead and drill a pilot hole, and then drill a 5/8 inch hole, and then put this in place and weld it on. Now I'm going to test fit this. I've got it spotted in place to make sure that it's still in a good location. And if so, I'm going to pull it out and fully weld it. Then I'm going to hang it, and then we'll get this crazy pipe, and it's supposed to mount somewhere around here. something like that. Here's what I came up with for mounting the muffler itself. I had to get this step done before I really continue on the rest of the exhaust. I had an incident yesterday where this was tucked up under the bed, and it was kind of held in tight with some tension. I was looking around and it fell and it hit me right in the head, like right in the temple, this corner did. And this thing weighs a good 20-25 pounds, so I had to kind of quit yesterday early to take care of my injury, we'll just call it that. But we're back on it. Here's a kind of a drawing of how it's going to look. So here's the bed floor, and then it has these little sills that come down, and this is what the bed mounts to. Get my shadow out of the way. So the bed floor and these sills, and then I've got tabs that are welded to the muffler body. It goes to some tabs that drop down here, and I'm going to drill and add riv nuts into the bed sills here. So I've got my riv nut tools, and here's kind of how the tabs look welded onto the muffler, and then they're held on with the same silicone brackets. Now, as you might be able to see here, I put ovaled holes in the cross sill mounts just so I have some wiggle room. I didn't know exactly how long these tabs needed to be, but that's basically it. So it'll be bolted to the cross sills like that, and then hopefully it won't fall on my head anymore. There we go. Now I just have to do this here and here, which is going to be really hard with this in the way. As you can see, I definitely didn't think this through. I'll be able to get these ones. This one's going to be a challenge. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Well, I don't have this one installed. I'll figure that out. I'm not going to worry about drilling those holes right now. I think these 3 mounts will be good enough. That's correct. I may have to do a little bit of finagling just to make sure it doesn't actually touch any of the cross beams and induce vibration into the bed itself. I know it's awfully close, but as you can see, there's not a lot of room here for suspension travel. Let me grab the pipe that I built for this side here, and I'll show you another reason it had to be tucked up so high. Okay, so this here is the entire 180-degree bend that I had. Hacked up a little bit past 90, because I actually had to have it come back this way. Just 90 degrees wasn't enough. I had to come loop this way to clear the trailing arm. I did have to cut this end off just so I could fit it. And then I had to weld this piece back on so it can slide into here. And as it is, I still need to make another, like a miter cut, because this actually has to jog up now to get to the outlet. But let's take this in here and show you what I'm working with. Yeah, so as it is, it doesn't fit. Well, I mean, it fits, but it needs to go in this way. It'll go all the way up to those weld beads, and I can't get it because it's hitting the trailing arm, and I can't turn it up anymore because it's hitting the other cross sill, because I need to make that other miter cut over here. Let's see if I can't show you that. All right, here we go. So it's hitting the trailing arm, so I can't push it in all the way here, and it needs to come down to match this. And it's going to be kind of a pain in the butt. So it's even going to have to not only jog down this way, but I'm going to have to kick it over this way a little bit too, because it still has to go this way about another 3/4 of an inch. So yeah, that's going to be fun. I'm laying down some masking tape on this dirty paint as a futile attempt to protect the paint, and you'll see what I mean by that later on here. And going through the mark that I made from the inside, I marked it from the inside because I could see better how to route it away from any obstructions on the backside. I'll start off with a hole saw that's almost the right size.
Oh, there's no turning back now.
And then because I need a teardrop shape for the teardrop tip, I'm going to finish this off with my jigsaw. Perfect.
Nice. Now, even though this is stainless and this is regular mild steel, MIG welder will stick them together.
A better way would be to TIG weld this with a 309 rod. However, I'm not doing that here.
Done it pretty good. I put the tape on here to try to keep slag off of it. A little bit of slag already trailed right there, but it'll be alright. Alright, I'm finally done welding all this junk. And I'm going to pull the front halves off, assemble it out here so you can see what it all looks like. And then I'm probably going to maybe touch up a few spots with the grinder, make sure I didn't miss anything. And then I think I'm going to spray some paint on it because everywhere where I ground off the galvanization and as well as the bare welds, those are going to flash rust immediately, especially out here in Virginia where everything rusts anyways. So I need to pull it all out, paint it, hopefully let it cure overnight. This is basically it. It fits a little more elegantly in the truck, believe it or not. Super pain in the ass. So headers, flex pipes, it crosses under the transmission. We've got one of the donut mounts right there, and then it has to go up and over the trans cross member. I guess this piece sits a little like that. That's a little more accurate. Goes up and over the trans cross member, and then they have to jog this way. So, you know, ziggy zaggy. Another donut mount over here that goes on the frame, and then it comes this way to the aftermarket cross member where this goes through on the driver's side only. I have another mount that bolts directly to that frame section, and then I've got this incredibly twisted little piece. I did have to get in right on one of these sides, right over here. Let's see if we can see it. And I did have to bash this a little bit because the control arm goes right through here. Clearance was pretty tight, so I went ahead and just bashed it so that the control arm didn't have to self-clearance. Goes up into the muffler, and this tucks in between the bed rails, as you saw, and it's got 4 mounts holding it in place. And then comes out this way. This actually sits up kind of higher, and that goes down a little bit more, but that's just how it sits static here. One more donut mount finally to attach this to the same bed rail that these two are on. And it comes out in the teardrop. Comes right out through the bedside in front of the rear passenger side tire. That took about 3 days. And of course, let's not forget all of the separate mounts for holding this thing in place. This one is for the trans cross member for the passenger side. This goes on the frame for the driver's side. These 4 right here with the slotted tabs, those are for the muffler. And this little diagonally one right here is for the hanger over there for the exit. Now I went and I just, took some basic measurements and cut all these on the fly with my little plasma table, welded them together, and there we go. Custom everything front to rear. I went ahead and threw some paint on the exhaust, especially in the areas where I had to grind off either the paint or the galvanization and do the welds, because that stuff would have rusted. This is just a quick coat on the, it's probably not going to last, but if it does, cool. If not, whatever. So the last step is to install the exhaust, and this thing is kind of a puzzle. The very first piece to go in is actually the last piece. The exhaust tip has to go in first in order to snake through the bedside. Then I have to put in the muffler. Then I have to put in this piece, the first 3-inch bend, And then the passenger side, which includes the merge collector, and finally the last piece is the driver's side. So the first piece going, that's the last piece exhaust, and it's good, and muffler in place, muffler's right here, I can put this in that way, I'm going to put this in, I'm going to get the through, now put this thing out, get the muffler in place, and then I'm going to put this into the muffler, and get this right up, okay, so right here is the air, get that up, alright, let's go to the muffler. Alright, so I don't have enough of these right now. I have some on order, and the rest of them should get here in a day or two, in which case I'll come in and I'll just swap these out. But for now, I'm just going to use some bolts with some washers, and the washers will make up the thickness of what the donut is. That way this thing will go in the right place. Look at that, the paint just peels right off with the masking tape. Awful. There we go. There's one incredibly tight-fitting exhaust.
Well, there we go. Mission accomplished. It looks good, it's tucked up out of the way, and it sounds pretty decent. So aside from the CNC work that I did, anybody could build this in their driveway or a small garage with a minimum amount of tools and a welder. But I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it motivates you to get out there and build an exhaust for your own car instead of paying somebody else to do it. It's super rewarding. Yeah, it did take a while for me to build, but there were some specific restrictions I was trying to get around, over, and through that you saw in this video. That's it. Smash that like button if you enjoyed what you saw. Leave me a comment if you think I could do anything better, or if you just liked what you saw. Subscribe to see more fabrication, to see more shop trucks, to see more American muscle, as well as some cool JDM stuff. That's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next video.